What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we did see a patent made public by Sony for the PlayStation 5, it seems, and could give us a look at, how they would cool the system and give us an idea as to how the form factor would be. I did an in-depth look at the patent on the second channel, but I just wanted to go over it here as well so any Newswave viewers can at least see what's going on here. And apparently Nintendo's discontinuing some Joy-Con colors. That kind of caught me off guard because some of the ones they're discontinuing are just strange. We're going to go over that as well. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we push towards 500,000 subscribers, hopefully by the end of this year. And we're going to start today with Game Pass and what is probably the biggest addition to Game Pass from a third party, completely. This one surprised everyone online as Red Dead Redemption 2 is heading to Game Pass. That's massive, right? For Microsoft. They put out a full post about this on their website, their news.xbox.com website, and it says that it will be arriving May 7th to Xbox Game Pass for console specifically. It doesn't appear to be going to Game Pass PC, at least not at this time. It's going to be exclusive to the Game Pass console side, but Red Dead Redemption 2 going to Game Pass? Honestly, it seemed like a big deal for a lot of people when GTA 5 went to Game Pass, which was strange to me because I thought everyone had bought this game since it's constantly in the sales charts, especially the MPDs, all the time. So I figure everyone has probably bought GTA 5 at some point in time. Red Dead Redemption 2 is still, it's not super old. I mean, it's a little older, obviously, but it's much newer than GTA 5. And it also shows this relationship between Microsoft and Rockstar with their subscription service on Game Pass. And hey, Microsoft could make some older games backwards compatible and just drop them on Game Pass from Rockstar. So you never know. Something to think about going forward. But yeah, not too much longer, a couple of weeks. And if you were someone who maybe passed on Red Dead Redemption 2 because you weren't sure if you would stick with it, if you have Game Pass, you'll be able to just download it. Also, we had Panzer Dragoon kind of just shadow drop during that last Direct Mini, and it was pretty fun. It was definitely a callback to the old days with Panzer Dragoon, which it was fun enough. It's not a super long game, but outside of the length of the game, there were some things that were pointed out that were tough, whether it was the controls, the frame rate, there were a few things. Well, it does look like they're going to be releasing a patch to fix this. Now, the patch itself hasn't been dated, of course, because there are currently, obviously, you have to wait for certifications and stuff, and that's kind of being held up right now by the virus going on in the world right now. So it looks like we just have to wait and see when it comes to the release date for this patch, but let's take a look at some of the notes for it. Now, this was put out by Panzer Dragoon World after they had a discussion with a co-producer of the Panzer Dragoon remake. It says HD rumble, 60 frames per second is added, input lag, reduced rotation improved, and then you have gyro controls, sound effects are being reworked, several face button to fire and lock, and auto lock system as an option. And then even further below that, episode 0 added, new game mode, they think it could be like performance, new gameplay options, new cheat codes, options accessible from pause menu, dragon animation reworked, a lot of stuff here that they're going to be added. I'm glad to see that, by the way, that they're not just moving on from this immediately. They're going to be spending some time continuing to improve it. So again, we'll see when at least the first patch here drops and we can take a look at how it improves the game, hopefully in the coming months. Also, as we work towards May, when we assume to see some console game reveals for next gen, this is what Phil Spencer tweeted out pretty recently to a person on Twitter asking about when we're going to see games. He said, reviewed plans yesterday for continued sharing through launch. Team is doing great work in adapting. I've never been more excited about Xbox plans. We've heard you. You want transparency / authenticity. We plan to keep showing that way. Next step is not too much of a wait, and that's games. Thank you. That's what we want to see. So hopefully that does mean that in the coming weeks, right, before the end of May, I'm thinking we'll have at least an idea as to what some of those studios for Microsoft will have for us, hopefully even around the launch of the Xbox Series X. I mean, keep in mind, right now, we don't know much of what's even happening the rest of this year for Microsoft. Halo Infinite, hopefully, right? There's probably a Forza game in there, but what else? And that's hopefully what they're going to tell us in the coming weeks through May, but we'll see. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with the PlayStation 5 internal heatsink, it appears. There was a patent that was discovered. It was made public just the other day. 2 or 3 days ago, it was made public. It was found online. I saw it posted to the PlayStation 5 Reddit. People were sending it to me on Twitter, and I did a pretty in-depth look at the patent and why it could be a pretty big deal that Sony's doing here to try to work out what they want the form factor to be for the PlayStation 5. So if you want to see a pretty in-depth look, I would say, at the heatsink and what Sony's trying to do here, check the second channel. There's a link down below. But let's talk a little bit about this patent. You can see the image here, and this patent was filed back in mid-2018, around the time, of course, the R&D and all of this was going on. And then it was made public, like I said, just recently, and it shows the heatsink on the bottom, and then the chip that it would be cooling on the opposite side of the motherboard. This is a very, very different design, but it does show that Sony's trying to work out a way to make sure that the box would be more slim, as it would leave then the top part of the board where you would have all of your different pieces, whether it's the Blu-ray drive, power supply, some kind of external storage, of course, unless that is just straight up soldered to the board. But we do need at least a bay, a drive bay for the NVMe if we want to do expandable storage. So if they do this, they would be able to tuck the heatsink away underneath and then leave the rest of the top to kind of lay everything flat. And it's going to be interesting to see this system when they do unveil it. Now, the timing for this patent going public, I mean, it is kind of lining up more and more with hearing about a May reveal for like the PS5 and some games, maybe pricing. Form factor, definitely, but the thing with Sony is they're very unpredictable right now. We saw the controller just drop on a random Tuesday afternoon, so they could show up next week, Monday or Tuesday, and say, here's the system. Just like, boom, that's it. Or they could release a trailer for a game or start teasing some sort of big presentation that's streamed like a state of play. There's a lot of things they could do. It's just this patent being released now did catch a lot of people off guard because, again, we're waiting for the PS5, so we're really latching onto any little bit of information that we can. But looking at this patent, it does at least give us an idea as to how Sony's going to tackle the thermals inside of this console, that they're going to try to make like a rectangular box most likely, and of course kind of line up with their idea of delivering just constant power and altering the frequency as they need it, a different strategy than what Microsoft is doing with the Series X. Either way, though, it is a patent, I will admit that, and that means that it could change or alter or not even be used at all. But I think the idea here makes a lot of sense to kind of get around the idea of shifting to what Microsoft has, which is a fridge or a PC tower, if you will, right? So Sony is coming up with some interesting stuff here, and I can't wait for it to come out, or at least be revealed, okay, it's a rectangular box. Now I can't wait to tear it apart so we can see what they've come up with. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo apparently discontinuing some Joy-Con colors, specifically in sets, because they do appear to still be available on that really cool customization website that they need to make worldwide. Like, come on, Nintendo, make it so that I can get 2 purple Joy-Con controllers on either side of a Switch whenever you inevitably drop some other revision for the system that Joy-Cons will attach to. Let's be honest, I'm sure they'll give us some more things to buy, right, just outside of like the Switch Lite. That'll most likely happen just based on what they've done with the 3DS and 2DS and all this other stuff. But it looks like they may be slowing and ending production on certain colors. Japanese Nintendo managed to spot this, and here are apparently the Joy-Con colors that they will be discontinuing. And the way that they found this is below these different Joy-Con sets on the website for Nintendo, it has characters that translate to end of production, with the gray, the yellow, and the red all having those characters on them. So they're going to discontinue gray. Like, okay, red and yellow. I mean, I guess you could look at that and say, all right, they're going to move on from that so that they can start producing other colors. But like gray, that's like the neutral colors that people would buy. Like, that's the one I got when I first got the Switch, was just the Switch with the gray Joy-Cons. Although I do wonder how well gray Joy-Cons sell separate from the system, right? Like, I wonder how many people walk in to like a Walmart or a Target or a GameStop or wherever, right? And they go, well, I'm getting the gray ones, even though there's blue, yellow, neon, all these other things. Nope, I'm getting the gray. I do wonder if a lot of people just kind of shy away from that and go for the different colors for more customization options. In that instance, okay, I see why they would start getting rid of those and just sell them alongside of the system. But yellow and red, like red is like Nintendo Red, right? Like why would they... Okay, I guess. Now, the hope here is that they are possibly working again on other colors. I thought Nintendo would have been dropping colors like every other month. Like they would have just been like, oh, Microsoft's doing all these controllers. We're going to do all these cool Joy-Con special editions. And they don't do it. I don't understand it at all. But if this is to work out production with what's going on currently in the supply chain and maybe like, okay, we're going to pull some focus away from these different Joy-Con colors and move to some others, or we're going to literally pull production for these so that we can make more Switch systems for in the factories. Maybe that's a strategy they're going to do. I'm hoping we get some really cool Joy-Con colors now that they are moving on from these three, but if you want to make sure you have a complete set of Joy-Cons for all the different colors, maybe you're a collector and you've been working on them, you're going to want to look for apparently gray, yellow, and red as soon as you can, because let's say they go end of production, they never come back. Those could be harder to find, but we'll see if we get any kind of announcement from Nintendo in the coming months, maybe, as to some new Joy-Con colors. Also, what Joy-Con colors would you want to see? I just want to see a straight set of purple. We're good. Next up, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts. One of the reasons I keep following this every week is because I'm tracking right now the historical rise of Animal Crossing. It's out of control. It's something I've never seen before at all. Like in gaming, when it comes to these sales in Japan, it is crazy. And it didn't stop this week. Let's jump over to the top 10 for games. Animal Crossing's at the top, only dropped 2%, by the way, despite there just not being that many Switches at all in Japan. Animal Crossing still rolling along, 286,586 pieces moved, and that puts it at 3.6 million, which means it will be passing Smash Bros. Ultimate this coming report. So the next report that we get next week for this current week, it will have passed it. It's probably already passed it now, but of course they have to count and tally all of the games. Final Fantasy VII Remake had a massive drop of 90% down to 70,652, although we did get word that they sold through over 90% of their shipments, and of course they were having a hard time getting those out there physically anyway, so I'm sure they're running into their own supply constraints for their games, as Nintendo has with their systems with the Switch. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is there at 3, Resident Evil 3 at 4, Smash Bros. Ultimate at 5, One Piece takes up 6 and 7 for the PS4 and then the Switch, Super Mario Party, and then Pokemon Sword Shield, and then Minecraft. Moving over to the hardware, the PlayStation 4 still has the top spot, 34,500. Now, a lot of that, of course, has to do with the Switch just being impossible to find in Japan, but it did jump 2,500 units up to 27,874, and I do think that Final Fantasy VII Remake is still helping PS4s along. Most likely, though, by next week, they will have kind of shifted places, and the Switch will probably regain that top spot. The 3DS, 1,571, and then the Xbox One at 53. So it really can't be understated just Animal Crossing's performance. 3.6 million in like a month straight up, right? Like that's insane. I've never seen something like that in Japan, physical sales like that. There's also word that digital sales are, along with those physical sales, are creeping up on over 4.5 million in Japan. Could even be more than that, as we're looking at estimates there. That's just in Japan. So yes, when Nintendo drops the Animal Crossing numbers, even though it's going to be like its first 10 or 11 days on the market, it's going to be ridiculous, right? We're going to see some big numbers for Animal Crossing and probably even Switch sales, as it appears they just sold out of everything that was left before they had to kind of shut things down. And when they were sending stuff out to retailers, they had to pull them back and say, hey, we're trying to get this all figured out. There's just not a lot of Switches out there. But Animal Crossing, doesn't matter. Keeps moving. So crazy stuff there. Final Fantasy VII Remake, we'll see if it gets a restock, as again, there was word that it was dropping off in Japan with that issue, and we'll see if by next week the Switch also retakes that top spot. But hey, if everything else, Animal Crossing still selling. And our last bit of news, let's talk about WWE 2K21, or just WWE 2K20 something for this year. We assume it would have been 2K21. Maybe they got crazy, changed the name. Who knows? Doesn't matter, because it's not happening. It was announced on the investors call yesterday where they just said, yeah, there's no launch of a new game this year. And I mean, we're getting to the point where they would have already announced it. They missed out on announcing it during WrestleMania, and that was kind of the obvious sign that something was off. And it does appear that we're just going to skip this year. Could actually end up being good though, right? For the franchise, and maybe they can kind of regroup a bit this year and spend, more than 10 months developing one of these games. But it could, of course, work out to where we get a better game anyway next year. It's just a shame, because this means that we're not going to get that laugh of seeing, 2K21 and people falling through the rings. We really could have used that this year. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Randy saying, the eShop needs a shopping cart. With so many deals, I'm honestly tired of buying each game individually. This ain't the Epic Game Store. Fix it, Nintendo. There really are just some basics that the eShop is still missing. You point out the shopping cart, and honestly, I didn't even really think too much about that, but yeah, with a lot of these deals especially, you start throwing them in a cart, then you check out much easier. And you do mention that people got on the Epic Game Store like crazy when they were missing some, again, basic things because they were comparing it to Steam. But the eShop is super bare bones still when it comes to buying options or even gifting games or doing all these different things. You feel like Nintendo would have moved on that, considering digital sales are on the rise, and they would have worked to kind of add to that eShop over the first 3 years of this system. We're halfway through the console generation, and the eShop still looks basically the way it did at launch, just, plus thousands and thousands of games that get added pretty much constantly throughout the year, right? So yeah, I'm hoping Nintendo has some crazy rollout where they're like, oh, the eShop's just going to alter and change completely, but they just added a feature where you hover over a game on the shop page and it starts sliding through screenshots, and the people and the websites really made a big deal out of that. I was like, oh man, I don't know. Nintendo might just not do anything with the eShop this generation, and maybe next time. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit that like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether there's that PlayStation 5 heatsink patent. Do you think the design is just crazy because they have to fit this really powerful system into a little box? Or do you think they have something else in mind? Because we've heard that there are still some secrets to the PS5 that we haven't heard about yet from developers and designers working with Sony that we've seen online. And then also, what do you think about the Joy-Con colors being discontinued? Are you a little concerned because you don't have yellow or red and you don't want to miss out on them? Let me know down below, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.